We are Virgo rising.
Okay, makes sense. That's exactly what we're trying to
Moon in the
accomplish.
29th degree of Pisces.
Yep. Oh my gosh, it's like a minute away from conjoining Neptune.
The God of the Sea music that starts off will be fully appropriate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mandi of Ecstatic Astrology, and today I'm here with Christa. How are you today, Christa?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I'm Christa of Practical Astros, and this is the August forecast. It is July 25th, Thursday, Jupiter's Day. And I saw a bear today on taking my kid to soccer camp. He was running across the interstate, and it felt very Jupiter and Gemini.
It
It
is.
was like everybody was like slowing down, and he was like on his hind legs. And it's like, this is living in the mountains, like having this beautiful big beast just lumbering across concrete and broken headlights to go to
Oh
Sam's
my
Club. That's
God.
where he was heading.
I bet that dumpster is rocking over
Oh,
there.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. Bears are so cool. I'm a little jealous you live in the mountains, but that's okay.
Bears are not cool when you meet them on the trail or you meet them in a Jeep where you've just taken the doors off. It's it's like sharks out of water. Like, they're cool until you're in their line of sight and they are curious.
Yeah.
They're curious nibblers.
Curious nibblers. Have you ever seen the Touron's Instagram account?
uh-uh.
It's like moron, but tourist mashed
Oh,
together.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
go to Yellowstone. There's all these videos of like people who
Oh,
think brown
bison.
bears are dogs too.
Right.
Like, come here, bear.
Yeah. Yeah. Not good. I mean, and
That's
growing up around alligators too, like, I love alligators. I love all the phonic swampy animals. And I knew as a little kid, you do not ever feed an alligator. But people would feed alligators all the time. Hot dogs and marshmallows. It was like this like kind of Russian roulette with like this very ancient animal. You just don't. Alligators, bears, sharks, you know.
incidentally, that's what we tried to do with August, is feed it.
Right. Yeah.
And it bit us a little bit. So this is our second time
Yeah.
recording this August podcast. And that's all I could think of. I was like, we totally treated August like a cute little bear or a cute little alligator. We were like, all right,
Yeah.
let's record our August thing. And it just wrecked us. It took us 3 hours to get through a podcast we didn't even use. Um,
Yeah.
if that tells you anything about August, don't feed the bears.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I feel like it was good practice for us because I've been thinking about the month of August for a while, just through the astrological lens. And there's some real challenges. And there's something about in the Northern Hemisphere, it's just hot. Everything's inflamed. And there's lots of opportunities for growth in August for
Mm.
everybody, regardless of rising signs. So it was like we went through the gauntlet of like talking about the possibilities. And I feel like we kind of came out of it of like, okay, now we have some basic general advice. And so I'm glad we did that. So maybe we can just lead with that general advice and not be so weighed down in like the, oh my God, ness of
Hmm.
August. Cause it's not just that. It's a lot. And sometimes at the end of summer, you're just tired. You're tired of dealing with all the astrological weather. You're tired of dealing with all the news and all the static. And so not going into it feeling exhausted, but just like one day at a time, we can do this, lead with your heart. That was kind of what we came out of it. It's like 3 hours
Yeah.
of talking, and we're like, lead with your heart. That's a great synopsis of advice to go with. So,
Yeah. So I mean, especially Leo season is like that anyway, but especially this Leo season, I feel like it comes up more because there's so much I mean, look, I have a hurricane emoji down here on the 18th. It's just that kind of is how the weather is,
mhm.
the astrological weather. There's, like you said, a lot of heat,
Yeah.
a lot of wind with Jupiter and Gemini, Mars and Gemini, and a lot of moisture with Saturn and Pisces, and all of that together kicks it all up. And whenever you have the weather around you kicked up, I mean, what do? You care about the people close to you. And I feel like that
Yeah.
it's one of those things that is coming through. I almost put a tornado. I was like, nope, nope, definitely more hurricane. But I mean, and I think that's why I love the emojis here is like you get drawn to what is that big red thing down there? And
Mm-hmm. The Eye
but
of Sauron.
yeah,
That's what I
yes,
thought.
uh, there you go. I mean, that's pretty much Mars, Jupiter come together. Are you kidding? Like that's going to be a thing. So yeah, I think leading with your heart in the eye of the storm might be the best way to approach this
Mm-hmm.
month. And here's an overview, my little calendar. And both Krista and I share calendars on our social media, so please go check those out. You can save
Yep.
them. It's really helpful. It helps me, and I think Krista feels the same way, to make them to kind
Mm-hmm.
of get a hold of the month. And as we go into August, I don't even know that I realized this at first, but Venus squares Uranus like real soon. And we're
Mm.
recording this today is Thursday, July 25th, at 9:35 a.m. with the moon almost exactly conjunct Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
So we're speaking to your
And bubbles.
subconscious. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
will
And
listen to this as you go to sleep and have like wonderful dreams about bears.
and hurricanes. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
but like instead of Sharknado, it's like barricane, a hurricane of bears.
and you know
Fuzzy
what?
and
That
sticky like honey.
a double entendre. Bear it, grin and bear it, because that might be also what we do. A barricade is coming
Mm.
at you, and the first thing that happens is Venus squares Uranus. I like this actually. Squares, growth. You said there's opportunities for growth, and I completely agree. And on
Mm-hmm.
August 2nd, we had Mars conjoining Uranus. We looked back on the last recording we did. I don't know that we need to now. It's like everyone's aware of how crazy
Yeah.
it's been, and Mars conjoined Uranus during that really explosive moment we all had when we saw a political candidate have a problem. I'm not going to say any more than that,
But
but
but Mandy and I were together in person when that happened. Um, I was in her basement and she texted me and I ran upstairs. I mean, it was an astrology good moment.
it
Maybe
was,
not a good moment, but an astrology good moment. So yeah, I
yeah,
wonder is like, can we pull up the chart just to look at the
yes,
square?
we can.
Because Uranus is slow, and I know it's not going to be exactly to the minute, but so Venus and Leo is squaring that pretty much that exact same degree that Mars conjoined Uranus at. And so it kind of is starting to tie in. Venus rules the temple that Uranus and Mars were in when that conjunction happened, and now Venus herself is kind of engaging with that point, that degree point, a sensitive point. So I'm just curious how closely to the minute it happened because it was only what 2 weeks ago that it happened.
Let me see about when it happened. And I actually really, now that I think about it, with open your heart, lead with your heart, being kind of a theme that we've hit on with Venus and Leo square. It's 2619 is where the
Okay.
conjunction was. So it's really close. It's really close. But that being the theme, and then Venus squaring Uranus right off the bat from Leo, a very heart centered, yeah, just mere
Mm-hmm.
minutes away, really,
Mm-hmm.
from the conjunction. So it's like, okay, we can't do this. Anger, frustration, violence, Mars, conjoining Uranus, Venus. It's like, hey, how about love? How about that? How
Yeah.
about let's use
Yeah.
that to break the mold?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think points to leading with your heart this month, and it's right off the bat, August 2nd.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, otherwise, I do think, with the square, there may be a little tension in doing that. You're so shaken up or so caught off guard by something, by, even the state of the world. None of this has to be a moment where you have something happen. It can
Mm.
just be a feeling. It can just be, I always like to say the gas station attendant says something to you, and it's like
Yeah.
a normal everyday thing. And you go, that was being a square Uranus, okay, I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Or, you're mom and dad want to have conversations about something you don't want to. And then you have to say, I love you. Let's just eat dinner.
Yeah.
How
Yep.
about that?
Yep.
Oh, right off the bat. How about that? I like it. And another right off the bat is the new moon. So we're going into the month with a new beginning in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
New moon in Leo, 12 degrees. It is sextile Jupiter. I really am happy about that. So I was telling
Mm-hmm.
Krista that I looked for a lot of good transits to kind of offset some of these harder or harsher ones.
Yeah.
Um, and this one stood out to me. Sextiles are opportunistic. So when you're having a new moon in Leo, the heart, creativity, how you shine, in an opportunistic sextile with Jupiter and Gemini, it indicates there's something growing in those two areas, I think. Or maybe an idea. Gemini is very mental and
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter is truth. So what is your heart truth? I can kind of read it that way.
Yeah. And Gemini and Leo, I feel like make really great friends. Just the
Mm.
the characters of both of them, they bring out the playfulness in each other. And can we see the chart of that day? I'm still seeing the calendar.
Oh,
Um,
I just shared it. Let's see.
but I
Is it coming up?
no, I just still see the calendar.
It's green on mine. Let me close the calendar. Why is it not? Stop share. New
But what
share.
I do like about there it goes. What I do like about sextiles is how nuanced they can be, and so you do have to kind of be more attuned to those opportunities. Squares and oppositions are loud. It's like we remember the bad stories because they make such an impression. But sextiles and trines are flow and supportive, so they are sometimes a little bit more noticeable, but sextiles are very nuanced and they're easy to miss, I guess is my point. Is like
Yes.
maybe with a new moon in Leo and its sextile, the benefic, the solar benefic, and Gemini, I mean, maybe it'll be a little bit more expressive just because it's kind of calling in those two signs, but sextiles can be missed because they are subtle. And they're subtle because it's just the beginning of something. It's like the first aspect that planets make after they are conjoined, then they are reverse, and then they sextile. So it's like, I don't know, a new chance, a new opportunity, but you can miss it in the moment, maybe in reflection later. You can be like, oh, that's kind of where that idea came from. I missed it and I didn't realize how positive that one little exchange could be. And so just for that day on that Sunday, I think looking at the new moon and looking at what kind of opportunity is coming in from the Leo Gemini house in your chart, because that's where you can kind of refine the spotlight to kind of triangulate the light to be like, what kind of opportunity is trying to come through here and how can I best give it some sunlight so that it can grow?
Mm. And Venus is still at the new moon in the same sign, which I really
Mm-hmm.
do like.
She's holding
Um,
on.
she is right there at the anaretic degree, 29 degrees of Leo, which should, kind of point out that these moments happen exactly as they're supposed to, because not very long after Venus moves into Virgo and Mercury goes retrograde. Within
Mm-hmm.
the next day, I believe I could just fast forward a day and you see Venus and Virgo, Mercury
Yep.
retrograde down here. So I want to say it was like 18 hours or something after the
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
moon that Mercury goes retrograde. And I think it's super on point. And I like to, not that anyone's got puppet strings and moving us around, the planets, who knows, right? But it is always on point because Jupiter and Mars are in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. This new moon is sextile Jupiter and Mars, really the midpoint of Jupiter and Mars, the new moon sextile that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something to note at least. And then Mercury goes retrograde, which is the ruler of Gemini and its
Yeah.
other home signs. So, and Venus joins Mercury. So it's this like, hey, have you thought about this
Yeah. I like
a
your
little bit?
idea. I like your idea, but you're gonna need this. I'm just gonna turn around and go help you find it first.
Yes,
I
yes,
love that.
I like it too. So, I mean, a really kind of nice start, kickoff. I mean, the Venus square Uranus, I'm not too worried about that. There could be implications with, money, economy,
Hmm.
but it's on a personal level, I don't look at that the same way I looked at the Mars conjunction to Uranus. This Venus
Mm-hmm.
feels more like giving gifts, even if it's in tension with Uranus. So
Yeah.
it's it's not going to be a bad start to the month. Let me put it that way. You've got the new moon sextile Jupiter, but maybe 5 days in,
Right.
maybe. Can you see the calendar now?
No, I'm still seeing the chart.
Weird. Okay.
But I wonder if like because that Mars conjoined Uranus, Mars was not at home in Taurus, and so it wasn't really behaving very well or comfortable and ornery, and at the end, and it was conjunct algal. I mean, there was a lot of other mitigating factors, mitigating in the wrong way. But with the with the Venus square, it's like Venus is looking at her own temple, so it's like there's a little bit more of a um yeah, there squares are the nature of Mars. There's, it's kind of this grit around which the pearl aggregates sort of aspect, but it's with Venus. So it's like there might be a little bit more compromise or ease or beneficial resolution as opposed to just explosion.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
forget like what we have said just in conversation and what was in the lost recording, the Voldemort recording, which name we will never speak of. But a way I described it was like when two planets are conjoined, they like empty out their pockets together and then see what the other one uses. And so they just grab out of the collective pocket, collection. And so Mars is emptied out his pockets of razor blades and syringes, and Uranus is like explosives and gunpowder, and they just like borrow each other's stuff out of each other's pockets. But with Venus and Uranus, it's like there might be explosives and gunpowder, but with Venus, there might also be like elixirs and massage oils and things that are a little bit more softening to the
Mhm.
Uranian electricity. So yes, it's a square with Uranus. We're going to get these throughout almost every month. Whenever anything is in a squared sign with that Uranus, but it's Venus, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Yes.
Famous
So
last words, I'm sure.
I know, right? I think I feel the same way though. I'm getting the feeling that it's more of like you said, a softening, like a
Mm-hmm.
cool water for you after a burn. That's what it feels
Yeah.
like. And even though it is a square, and then the new moon sextile Jupiter, so there's the start of the month is pretty nice, and then Mercury decides to turn around. It's like, wait a minute, I'm in Virgo. We still have work to do in Leo. So
Yep.
that's something that happens. It's really like overnight, the fourth and the fifth. So
Mm.
I put the fifth because that's the first morning we wake up, I think, with Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo, its own home sign. But I think we could talk about this a little, the difference between Virgo and Gemini, because
Mm-hmm.
Mercury rules two signs. Jupiter is in one of them. Mars and Jupiter are in Gemini. Very trickster. It's really
Yep.
hard for me to associate another main word with Gemini. Gemini is the trickster. It's the twins. It is um, double faced. It has many different ways it can act. In fact, any way
Mm-hmm.
that it could figure
Yeah.
out to act, it can act that way. And
In
then
fact, I
Virgo,
put this picture of the that I made of Mercury up there, and he keeps falling down, which feels very trickstery. But
it's a
yeah.
very, yes, that is Gemini. That's exactly what that
Mm-hmm.
is. And Virgo is like, all right, I have two homes. One I can make a mess in almost and just experiment. Gemini feels very
Mm.
experimental. And Virgo is the home that it keeps really nicely and it is
Mm.
meticulous. And, it takes a white glove over the baseboards and says, this is really dusty. That's a Virgo Mercury concept to me. It's like
Yeah.
it pinpoints.
Yeah. Or like Gemini is like the expression of the hungry, hungry hippo of just as much information as possible. And then the Virgo is like, let's look and see what we have and kind of put it into some sort of tangible order, some sort of there's the analysis of Virgo that Gemini also has really quickly, but not to the nth degree. It's not the white glove sort of discovery or analysis. It's like intuitive gut response analysis because it's hungry for the next bit of information.
Mhm.
Um, and I like the over the seventh and the eighth when Venus and Mercury get together, kind of passing the batons. That Venus is just left Leo. She's in Virgo, the sign of her fall. She's not comfortable in Virgo, but she's able to really explore whenever a planet is not at home. It kind of gives the chance, the freedom to explore. And Mercury on his way back to Leo, it's almost like I could just see them sharing secrets to kind of help each other out on the journey. The whole time of this month, they kind of have this little dance with each other, with the houses that they rule to. And I like that moment of what's coming together with Venus and Mercury and Mercury's sign. What's their really short, because they both move pretty quickly relative to the rest of the
Mhm.
planets, even though Mercury is
Sure.
slow. What kind of pot are they putting together to empty out their purses to see what each other is using, and are they going to like share some of their tools? I really
Uh,
like that day.
and the moon is there with Juno in
Mm-hmm.
Virgo. I think that's cool. 3 degrees of Virgo. So if you have anything at 3 degrees of mutable signs, this might benefit you. I don't necessarily slap bad on Mercury retrograde. That's not
Mm-hmm.
kind of anything that I do. I think Mercury retrograde is cleanup time, and we all need
Yeah.
that. So when Venus and Mercury conjoin, like you said, they empty out their pockets, and Mercury's like, I can't, I don't, I feel like Mercury's like, I don't really have time, but thank you. Why don't you go on in the house and make yourself comfortable?
Yeah. I'll
And
be
I gotta
back.
go. Yeah, I gotta go fix whatever just happened in Leo. So it's a really nice, again, a really nice beginning. I don't look at this as bad. I look at this as informative.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing that we have doesn't really, there's not much going on from the 8th through like the 13th. And we can just
Yeah.
kind of explore the chart and see, because you can
Sure.
follow the moon around here. There's the moon if you're watching this. And day by day, the moon moves into Libra. Then, Mercury is going further and further back. There it is at 1 degree. And it makes it back into Leo just in time for the moon to square it, by the way. The moon squares it from
Mm.
Sag to Virgo on the 13th. So maybe that's something to kind of look at. And I have been looking at the 13th and 14th for a long time. I think I even
Yeah.
brought this up on the last
On
unnamed recording.
Voldemort's hour. Yeah.
Yes. So, and it's because the moon in Sagittarius completes this grand cross
Mm-hmm.
that I really think is going to open up. And this is a Wednesday. So this is middle of the week. That's right. Mid. It's the most
Right,
mid
right,
of
right.
the mids.
But it may not feel very mid.
No, no, you're probably right. Or you might just be like, this is mid, and this is mid in a really, lame way. Because sometimes
Mm.
mid can be like, oh, it's mid. I don't know what the kids say these days, but the moon opposes Jupiter and Mars, which are conjoined that
Mm-hmm.
day. What do I have on here for the Mars conjunction? I do have it on, yeah, on the 14th exactly. So I guess they're just kind of hanging out there even.
Yeah.
And the moon opposes that. Venus is square to it, and so is Saturn. Now they're in degrees that make this a wide orb for a grand cross, but
Mm-hmm.
mutable signs will want to pay attention.
Well, and also we talked before about the power of an applying aspect versus an exact aspect. So I would even see that you might feel this, a couple of days before with Mars approaching Jupiter. And then on this day, Venus is you beginning to really approach the opposition to Saturn. And even though it's not exact, that square to the moon, there's like when you're about to reach something, that pressure, that applying aspect, sometimes is just felt more palpably than the exact aspect. I think that that's what I learned from the Mars Uranus conjunction, is that it was palpable before it became exact. By the time it came exact, it was just like, you
Yeah.
know.
You gave me the vision of Venus being like driving down the highway and knowing there's a wreck and coming up to it slowly. That's what
Mm,
it seems like. Like you have to slow down. You have to make sure that, you're merging with traffic. And Venus is coming in late on this square
mhm.
situation. So Venus is taking its time and looking, and Mercury just left. I mean, or is about to leave Virgo. But I think having Mercury in Virgo during the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter is something that is significant because
Mhm.
it could be in Leo, but no, it's at the 0 degree of Virgo when it
Yeah, it
conjoins.
wants to see what's going on. It's like a looky loo, like what's going on over there.
Yeah.
Just making sure you don't make too much. And Mars Jupiter, as a Mars Jupiter conjunct native in Mercury's temple, it's in the Yin Mercury temple and not the Yang Mercury temple, like we see here. It doesn't always have to be explosive. Sometimes it's just like a jetpack of energy and thought and speed of all the intellectual capacity that Gemini has. And it looks like it's in Venus's bound.
Yeah, just
Is that
barely.
right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about to leave. I mean, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Maybe. Now I need to erase that. I just made my chart bigger. But I mean, I was looking at also the things I've thought leading up to this, because I've looked at this date for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought it has to do with the election. Always. It never crossed my mind that this moment would be about, and I mean, obviously in your own personal life, it'll be about something personal, but
Yeah.
in the larger context, it has always seemed to be about the amount of crazy information that is going to be
Mm.
flying around. The I mean, lack of assurance that it's true. Saturn in Pisces, it's retrograde. And
Mm-hmm.
Neptune's there. Is it true? Is it, I don't know what to believe. Sagittarius, I do have my deep beliefs, especially with the moon there that day and then Venus and Virgo, but I really am going to have to put my brain to work to figure this out.
Well, and all that mutability has the talent and the curse of being able to kind of consider sides, consider
Hmm.
what direction to go, and to be able to balance that tennis match of thought. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? I feel like that's it's a blessing of mutability, is to be able to pivot and like change your mind. But there's a lot of things that are like asking you to change your mind in a certain direction. I remember this car commercial where they asked kids like how they could just would just like how do you describe four-wheel drive, and one kid was like, each four wheel can drive in a separate direction at the same time. I always thought that was just like the funniest concept. This is kind of how that feels, like everybody's driving off in a different direction, but the car is still bound by its frame. Like it's
Hmm.
not going to go anywhere. So it's like figuring out what that equilibrium is so you can move forward. This doesn't feel like a moving forward day. It's like a reconciliation day. And yeah, I do like Venus being Venus and Virgo feels like Florence Nightingale. It feels like a war nurse coming up and being like, okay, well, I'm out of my home country, but I do have my little doctor's bag. And can I offer any aid to those that are aggrieved or those that were injured? And I really love that the moon is there, kind of, witnessing it all.
I do
Yeah.
too. I think you're exactly right about Venus. I'm almost looking at this thinking, the gods for Venus and Mercury being in Virgo at this moment,
Mhm.
because it allows a bit of earth when there is just, it seems like it could be chaos. I mean, I
Hmm.
know Uranus isn't involved, but
Yeah, it's not very helpful.
yeah, I know. It's like Mars and Jupiter, like together. I would, if I were you, me, anybody going into this week, just be aware of the physical implications. Mars is rules the body. Mars rules cuts, and Mars rules And actually, last time Mars was in Gemini, I cut my hands in Gemini's hands, and I like
Mm,
it. Just both me, my husband, my daughter, all three of us cut our hands in that moment. That was like.
yeah.
So, I mean, and those are practical ways you can use astrology. Is going into this week, the 12th with the moon in Scorpio, Mars ruling it,
Hmm.
approaching Jupiter. And we talked a little bit just now about the applying aspects. You can see Mars at 15 here on Monday, the 12th, and Jupiter at
Hmm.
16. They're exactly a degree apart. That was like Saturday before the Monday conjunction of Mars and Uranus.
Right. Yeah.
So if you kind of apply the same, or this is Monday before Wednesday, maybe start thinking about it. Don't go like roller skating for the first time in 40 years, maybe. Or
Maybe no hot air balloon rides. That's what the Mars, Jupiter, and Gemini feels like. Just like one big tragic hot air balloon ride. It's
the
gonna be a
Hindenburg.
glorious death, but still death when you hit the bottom.
Oh, the humanity. Oh, the humanity. That's what it feels like. You're right. It does. So yeah, the whole of the Monday through Wednesday and even Thursday. I mean, because Venus is coming into oppose Saturn, and it just really doesn't stop. So let's go back to the calendar. It just
Well, and
doesn't.
one thing I wanted to bring up
Oh
is
yeah, you need to pull that
is
back up.
one no, I can just
Okay.
chat. But one way that my eyes kind of dance around a chart with astrologers, your eyes kind of drawn to one thing, and then it's like a lily pad. You just kind of jump around the pond. What I always look at is anticia and contra anticia. I'm like, what's there under the current trying to be revealed? And there's not anticia and contra anticia. I mean, the moon does that, but there's
Yeah.
not elongated contra anticia anticia, which to me, it's kind of like everything's going to be kind of on the surface. There's going to be a lot of information, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of background information or hidden behind the scenes, which there will be later. Once we get into September, there will be that. So it just feels like there may be confusion with of what direction to go, but I feel like we're going to have all the information that we want if we want it all, and it doesn't feel like there's things kind of happening in the background so much. So it's like it just feels like everything is going to kind of be on the table. There's going to be a lot of it, but you don't. I don't really consider there's like these secret paranoid things to
Right.
have to consider on top of whatever else is happening.
Yeah, it's like what's true for me, not necessarily what's
Mm-hmm.
true. Like and like there's no man behind the curtain
Right.
during this,
Yeah.
but it does still very much feel like, but I still don't. I got to figure out which direction to go, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, I agree, and especially with Mercury moving back into Leo right on the
The next
15th.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, and it changes the nature of Mars Jupiter as soon as
Mm-hmm.
Mercury retrogrades back into Leo, and then it's about what we started this podcast off with is heart,
Yeah.
love, lead with that, and then also what is it that you desire or where do you need to be seen? There's so many Leo keywords you could apply here. Um, but have the Mercury stuff in the background, maybe how you speak, how you
Mm.
process the data. Are you thinking about your heart? Is there that connection there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what degree does Mercury go back to in Leo?
I want to say 21.
Five?
Let me do it. May be
21?
5. 21.
21.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it's all of August. I love how it goes retrograde on the
Mm-hmm.
4th and then ends on the 28th. Like, yeah, that was just an August thing. It's
Yeah.
fine. Thank goodness. I don't want it in September. I really don't. So that's good. Um, so yeah, Mercury back into Leo on
The 15th.
15th
Yeah.
or the 14th, depending, I guess, where you are. And let's go ahead and share the calendar again because there's a lot more and I have to remember it all.
But wait, there's more.
August is coming. I remember I said that in I think our June
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast because I was like, oh man. And then so here you go. There's the me part of that.
Mm.
Me. because everything else is very, um, I mean, even Jupiter and Mars, even though they're in Gemini, it just feels like bigger than everyone else sometimes. It feels
Mhm.
bigger than the personal. And then Mercury retrograde moving back into Leo just, I think, makes it personal somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my
Yeah, I
feeling.
mean, like if we just think of like a general delineation of like what does Mercury do, what does Leo do, and and then layer that back on of like why is there a retrograde going back to that fire sign? So Mercury is
Hmm.
retrograde or is spending more time in fire signs than all of the rest of them combined this year. It's going to spend a good bit of time in Leo. I think it spends the longest amount of time in Sagittarius, which is hilarious to me this year. But what is it about Leo? My favorite things about Leo is just like how steady and that hearth sort of energy that Leo can bring of like the job of Leo is to sustain light. And then when Mercury comes in to kindle, it may be a way to sustain that heart light is to just communicate truth. We say speak your truth, speak from the heart a lot. It's very hard to actually do because you want to consider other people's response to what your truth might be, or you don't want to come off unkind. But I feel like if a way to an antidote against the kind of really quick rumor mill of Jupiter and Gemini is to balance that out with like actually a radical thing I believe is something that's very close to my heart. I feel like everyone should be an organ donor because of I have a brother that has had a kidney transplant and it saved his
Mm.
life. And I just want to say that out loud to people that like it really matters to me that people are willing to sacrifice their organs. It seems like a small thing, but just saying it out loud, it's like that in itself is an antidote to speaking very small morsels or sacraments of truth that come from your lived experience and your core beliefs, help kind of provide some sort of balance to just the churn of whatever memedom information comes out with that Jupiter Gemini. I really like that Mercury's coming back to Leo of like let's put Mercury's finger or quill pen or typewriter or texting thumb on your heart. What does your heart actually want to say? You've got like all month to be able to express that and to do that, especially for Leo risings. I love this for Leo risings. It's like you have Mercury in his joy. He's retrograde. So he has old stuff that he didn't get a chance to say that now he has a chance to say, or she has a chance to say. And, I'm looking forward to it. I like when Mercury is in Virgo later because it's really quick after it goes direct. But I kind of like the reminiscent retrospective, a second chance to say your truth, kind of the misconnection for Mercury and Leo, but going back to the heart and having that chance to kind of speak from the heart. I just think it's just so sweet to me.
I so agree. I mean, even Pisces being such a, I want to say, I call it agape love whenever I think of Pisces,
Mm-hmm.
which is just,
Mm-hmm.
love without any judgment or anything.
Condition. Yeah.
Condition, that's the word. And Saturn and Pisces, Saturn is a malefic. It gets such a bad rap, but it's really an inescapable thing for me whenever you have Saturn in Pisces, Mercury retrograde, and Venus in Virgo to begin with, and then Mercury
Mm.
moving back into Leo. It's such a servant oriented transit to me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Virgo is servant oriented. Pisces is servant oriented, maybe not Gemini and Sag, but and they're the counterbalance to all of this. But
I feel like Gemini and Sag have a servant orient if there's a specific mission. I feel like they are really game to be a part of it if there's a very clear mission.
yeah,
It's like they're called, like Pisces and Virgo be like, anything you need, I'll help. It's like Gemini's like, you give me a specific task, I will investigate that. So I do
very
feel like that
true.
mutability does have the ability to surrender, but that seems like Sag and Gemini need the call more than Virgo Pisces. They don't need anything to serve.
Yeah, Virgo Pisces is just like, oh no, that let me,
Please, somebody ask me to do something for them.
yeah, yeah. And I say that as a Pisces Virgo native. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and all of them, I have all of them. So you can imagine how this month's going to go for me. Um, maybe I'll be,
I twitch.
I I try not to put my, let you guys see too much of my hand, but this right here, Mars square Saturn, popped out when you were talking about Mercury moving back into Leo and talking about like organ donation and just that
Mm,
love and speaking on it. And I think maybe the way this might go is Mars square Saturn, and we realize we have to say something.
mm,
I don't know, I mean, I know Saturn is obstacles. It's retrograde. It's really not in its strongest place in Pisces. It can't be angry, mean Saturn in Pisces. It's looking to
mm-hmm,
Jupiter. Jupiter is like, hey, buddy, don't get too comfortable trying to wrangle that area.
mm-hmm,
So Mars and Gemini is just this push to speak against
mm,
whatever the Piscean Saturn in Pisces thing is going on for you. Or the push to do. It could also be that the push to recognize your own thoughts in the middle of all of this kind of existential dread
mm,
that we have hanging over us. So this is what you think, or maybe you hear or read something around that day, and then on the 17th Mercury squares Uranus, and I think that's when it pops off. It's like I can see this story arc of I have to say something, I have to say something, and then 17th Mercury retrograde in Leo squares Uranus is like, all right, I'm
mm-hmm.
gonna say it now. I'm not gonna hold back.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and there's something about that day. It's the Ides of August. Ides just means middle, right?
Yeah.
But it's like that tension point, that middle of the month. There's something about this day that you know. I feel like if you were curious about picking up a new musical instrument, like even if it's just a recorder or like a synth app on your phone, or go find some kids toys at a thrift store, I feel like it would just be fun to harness kind of the hilariousness of Mars in Gemini, and then Saturn in Pisces, and then the approaching square with Mercury and Uranus. I just feel like just go be a little frivolous and fun and enjoy it. And like maybe you pick up a guitar that you haven't picked up in a long time. Maybe you change the strings and you dust it off and you just try to play your favorite song and just channel it in like a just a really fun, frivolous. You're not trying to be a musician, but you're just trying to like do something fresh and new and something that's just kind of folly. I feel like the motivation with Mars and kind of the dreaminess of that, Saturn wants some sort of container. Let the container just be, the pain of bar chords or the pain of like making the sounds wrong. I don't know. I just, if you have the impetus to pick up an instrument, in August, I just kind of feel like you have a chance to in the middle of the month, and it doesn't have to be long lasting, but it can just be like a nice, fun way to do it. And I know people that did this when Mars was in Gemini for what, like 8.5 months,
Yeah.
they picked up instruments, and it was like this really kind of interesting way to channel, like people playing keyboard, and just like that was the way that they just kind of moved that Martian energy through. And it was like really kind of constructive and pleasant. And it was just a way to kind of harness the energy instead of it just like piling up on each other. So yeah, that's my completely anecdotal and like tip. It's like I challenge you to just pick up an instrument and just try it for a couple of weeks and see if that helps in any way, because
I think
I
it's
don't think it can
great.
hurt.
No, I think you're right. I mean, that's part of leading with the heart. And in astrology, Leo is related to children, it's related to play, creativity, and heart-centeredness,
Yeah.
and letting your light shine. And if you're not going to pick up an instrument, maybe write, maybe whatever creative activity that you don't normally do. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this article in Scientific American one time. I still have the Scientific American that was talking about geniuses and creative geniuses. And one of the things that was true for every creative genius was, or, regular, I think they're all creative geniuses, a regular
Right.
genius.
An
One thing that was
uncreative genius.
one thing that was true for all of them is they had other creative hobbies that they
Yeah.
weren't passionate about, or maybe were more passionate about than what they did. But I think, it's like Einstein cooked, or something like that.
Hmm.
He was a chef. And then, Mozart did this. And it was just this completely other different thing. But it's like a watch pot never boils. So if there is some obstacle with Mars square Saturn, I think you're right. Like
Hmm.
choose a different creative outlet than you're used to. And
Yeah.
everything's creative. So it could be anything. But
Hmm.
I also saw recently someone say, none of this is meant to be held in the body. And
Mm.
this being all of this, right?
Yeah.
And, if you are holding it in your body, it kind of festers, and
Mm.
art is the way to do that. Making music, picking up an instrument, or a paintbrush or whatever, that's the way to release all of this. And
Yeah.
you are spot on with that week being a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do when I feel so I've been doing a lot of writing, which means that I'm just sitting and typing. And to kind of like shake out of it, I, put on Tom Waits, was it Tango Till You're Dead or whatever? And I just like dance really ridiculously and just get it out. And then I can sit down and like, it's like it just kind of unrattles me in like a really fun way. Or I'll put on Amalia Rodriguez and dance as if I know how to dance to that music. But it's like this real, like empowering, beautiful way to kind of synthesize. It's like just the physical body movement. Or I'll sit down and I'll just like play some of my favorite songs. I love to sing for myself. I don't like to sing in front of other people, but just having that the air go like clear out the lungs. The lungs in Chinese medicine hold grief, the heart holds joy. And so it's like by kind of clearing out the energy of that, I just think of like what kind of energy with Mars, because Mars and Saturn, they're tough. They challenge us. That's their job, is to be challenging. And with Mars and Gemini, it's like, well, is it writing? Is it singing? Is it communicating? Is it thought? What can you do to kind of channel all that through so it doesn't store in the body, so it doesn't fester, so you don't have this like memory, like breathing out as much of your lungs as you can. Like when you do yoga, the teacher will be like, take the deepest breath you've taken all day long. It makes you really mindful of that. And I just feel like that's a way we can kind of like harness the best parts of Mars, especially squaring Saturn, because that it's not an easy one, but I feel like there's ways that we can navigate it, and it also won't happen. It won't last for too long, which is a good
Yeah,
thing.
that is a good thing. I agree. I always, you just made me think of when you watch movies or TVs and it just shows someone having such a hard moment and they just break out in a dance. And I've
Mm-hmm.
done that. Like
Yeah,
it's cathartic.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I agree completely. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's a stroke song that I always listen to when I have to drive for like 20 minutes. And it's just like an EDM dance song. It's like out of their normal repertoire, but I just get so into it, just like dancing upper body in the car, that I get out and I'm like, wow, like so ready. It's amazing like how we can like self-medicate just with movement. So
oh
that's,
man.
yeah.
And I definitely do. And I don't also do. I was on the dance team in high school, but
I was in
it's
ballet. It's
very
a little different, but yeah. I was in
a
ballet,
little
and then I
different.
did I did Scottish dancing where we danced with swords, and that was like way more my vibe. But then I got too cool for that, so stopped.
I graduated in New Orleans and we did
Oh
a
yeah.
dance to the thong
Oh
song.
oh
So
yeah. That's a different level of dance right there.
thong song. I learned to twerk in 2000, I guess, 99. Okay. I also was looking at the hurricane and I had to look up some lyrics because this song, it just like popped in.
mm,
And it's a Levon Helm song. It's called Hurricane.
mm,
And I do feel like maybe this weekend with my little hurricane sign there, it's because Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, they're really tight, and Venus right there.
mm-hmm.
Um, but there's this line in the song called Hurricane. He says, I don't mind the strain of a hurricane. They come around every June.
Yeah.
And it just like kind of makes me feel like these moments come around all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
it is strain. I don't mind the strain of a hurricane. It's part of living here. It's part of living in this reality. For him it was New Orleans, but
Yeah.
like you know, there is that sense that, yes, this is maybe rough, maybe tough, maybe strained, but they come around all the time,
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you hear or see someone fear mongering in the astrological community, just, yeah, like, I mean,
Report them. Just kidding.
to us, I'm kidding.
I always know when there's some sort of thing going on because I get all these texts from random group threads of like, "Is this true?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this planets go retrograde every fucking year. It's not
Yeah.
not a big deal. Don't fret." And so my rule of thumb is like, if you hear an astrologer or really any sort of predictor say this will definitely turn out this way, they don't know. They are
Nope.
making up their best guess, and they may
Yeah.
be right, but they actually don't know, and that's fine. That's actually a good thing, you know.
Yeah. We'd
Let's
all be
all ride this
millionaires.
together. Yeah.
I would
Can
be a
we
millionaire if I
can we
knew.
look at the chart for the 18th?
Yes, we can.
Because we have all of that going on, and because Saturn's involved, Saturn hosts the moon on the full moon the next day. So it's again that applying aspect. The full moon is growing, so it's
Whoops.
like the light is even growing even more. And so I'm just curious
Come
what
back to it, Mandy. All right. We are at,
the 18th, 19th, is that what it
yeah,
was? Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So we have Mars, oh, Venus opposite Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
The full
Square
moon is
Jupiter.
27. Let me get the exact full moon. There we go. That's the exact moment of the full moon. Um, yes, Saturn, that's right. Jupiter is square Saturn. Venus is opposite Saturn. I mean, at the moment of the full moon, it's moved to 18-0. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
right there on it. The full moon is square Uranus. That's a doozy right there, I think. Yeah. So I mean, you got the makings of a hurricane.
Wow. So I was looking to see because it looked like as soon as Venus would move past that 1959 that Mars is in, would there be a benefic closure of Mars? But I think that Saturn actually interrupts that because Saturn is at 17. Oh, maybe not. Oh, yeah.
Let's
So keep
see.
going so that Venus is ahead of Mars. Is there anything that's going to break that up? That
I
actually might
know.
be nice. I hadn't even looked at that yet.
Oh,
No,
what
Mars
is
is too
the
quick. Mars is faster.
Mars is? And they're
He's like, get me out of
there's
this benefic enclosure. I don't want that.
right. Because the Venus Mars square isn't until the 22nd. So it,
Yeah.
it takes a couple of days. It does after that. And what day is this? It's a Monday. Okay, of
Yeah.
course, of
Yeah.
course. It's it's a moon day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll probably try to rest, although I cannot rest at full moons. It is not my thing. I am
Yeah.
don't sleep. I haven't slept a lot since Mars went into Gemini, I have to be honest.
Well, is Aquarius your eighth house?
12th. In Gemini?
Sorry,
Oh, Aquarius?
Aquarius. Yeah. So the full moon
Yes.
will be in your eighth. Yeah.
Yep. And Mars in my 12th. It's just like, I don't know. I don't even know who I am right now. It's fine. It's
That's
fine.
fine.
Who am I? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I wonder like what is the heavy hitter here,
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else, which is that it's a Kazemi just before that. I don't even
Oh,
think I
that's
have it
right.
on the
Yeah.
18th. Yeah, technically the night of the 18th. I mean, the
Okay.
moon's pretty full at this point if you're looking in the sky,
Yeah.
and Mercury's with the sun um, at 8:58 p.m. in Leo, which this would be the height of that heart-centeredness if we were
Mm-hmm.
gonna look for it. So how amazing that the moon reflects that light right after on what is it, the morning of the 19th?
That it's full.
Oh, it's the midday
Yeah.
of the 19th. So yeah, less than 24 hours later, the moon's reflecting the light of the Kazemi. And
Yeah.
I just love that. I love that because Mercury is so important throughout this month. There's so much in both of Mercury's home signs.
Mm-hmm.
Even Saturn being ruled by Jupiter, which is in Gemini, is ruled by Mercury in Leo. The
Yeah.
sun's in its home sign. So Mercury and the sun are really teaming up to kind of direct all of this mess, you know? Um,
And like this is the moment that Mercury has returned back to kind of glean something it needed from the sun before it can move forward because it still has
yeah.
5 degrees more, it has another 10 days before or 9 days before it goes direct. But like this is the moment. Like I love Kazimis. It's one of the reasons I'm an astrologer is because Kazimis exist.
Yeah.
Literally. And I would pay attention to this day. I mean, I pay attention to omens whenever they happen. Like couple of days ago, I found a half $5 bill, and I was like, what the fuck omen is that?" And my husband was like, "That's a $2.50 omen. That's what that is." But like, so especially this day, so like Kazemi moments with that moon and Saturn sign. I jokingly have this relationship with Aquarius moons. Like I'm always around them. And, I pretend that I don't like them, but I actually really love Aquarius moons. And so it's like having that Saturnine airy moon, being full at the moment of Kazemi. It's like there is so much secrets. There's so much secret revelation. And so, be a good astrology client by writing things down for this day. Like what's coming through, what crazy idea has thread through, what is your dream, what is this conversation that you've mimicked, is your phone listening to you in your conversation with your mom, is it's showing you these advertisements of things that you talked about, like what are the like the little seemingly intangible threads that you want to pull on, because I just feel like that they're like, yes, Mercury is Kazemi, it's a full moon, but we're able to like be led in on that secret a little bit for this day. So
Yeah.
I don't say this would be a day for sleeping. But if you do, maybe like a nice little daydream will kind of like just give you a little nudge or a wink of something that you're able to be privy to.
Yeah. And I mean, with the fact that Mercury squares Uranus just before the Cazimi, just before this full moon square Uranus, I think you're right. It's like, wake up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what show it is that I was watching that they would just say, oh, it was the True Detective, the latest season. They're one of their things they had, and they kind of tried to make
Mm.
it like supernatural, but it didn't end up being. The plot line just kind of did not go that way. But they kept saying,
Yeah.
wake up. And it feels like this is a day for wake up.
Yeah.
In some way, what to whatever, and definitely find out where that is in your chart. And also, just as a side note, find out where Mercury is in your chart,
Mm.
because a lot of the I think because Mercury rules a lot of what's going on, it might be helpful to know where it's at in your chart and what the themes might take on a little flare of during this time. But
Yeah, so like fixed risings, it's going to hit your major angle, so it might be loud. But honestly, I mean, having a mutable rising too, because Mercury would rule two of those angles. you know.
that's right. So, I mean, it's a big day. And so I will get clients who will say, like, I will talk about this day, and they're like, well, is it a big day for me or for everyone? And, I get that a lot. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, this one's for everyone, but it also is for you if you're a fixed rising or a mutable rising. So, it's really helpful to tune into your chart like that and be like, is this for me or everyone? If it's not touching anything in your chart, you're still going to notice it, but
Yeah.
not near as strongly. That's just the way it goes. But
Yeah,
you
this is
notice
happening
it
two
around you.
degrees. It's happening 2 degrees away from my north node, south node. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like that, my north node is 25 Leo. So, I mean, like I'm paying attention to it just for myself personally. I mean, I feel like there's so much. If you look at the spread of planets, we have, some of the asteroids up here too, because we were talking about asteroids before we started recording. But if you just look at the spread of planets, I mean, it's kind of a nice smorgasbord of planets for everybody. And
Yes.
there's going to be some, if you use a 5 degree or between, like it's going to be touching a lot of people. Full moons are collectively experienced, and so even like old pagan festivals happened under a full moon, literally just because it shed more light on the ground so we could all gather together later. I mean, like full moons are collective experiences, and they're so I mean, like even just that alone, being able to witness a full moon, people that are not into astrology still share their full moon pictures. It's like a shared, and being in kind of more of a collective, disparate sign of Aquarius too, it just kind of speaks to that. But you have kind of a variety of degrees to choose from and a variety of modalities from this chart of the full moon. So I feel like it'll be collectively experienced and it'll just also hit a lot of people.
It's true. And you made me notice something that Vesta is down there with the
Mm-hmm.
sun. And I mean, speaking of Hearth Keeper, that is what Vesta does. Vesta's in Leo, even. The
Yeah.
keeper of the hearth is in this place where we're talking about keep that hearth going, keep it glowing, keep it burning. And I just think that is so beautiful. But then I also notice when I look at a chart, it tells me so much.
Mm.
And when I put the hurricane symbol up on the calendar, I didn't even realize that all of these squares would look like hurricane things. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, wow, that really is very hurricaney. And I don't
Yeah.
say that to fearmonger. It's just like there's just so much, like you said, so
Mm.
much going on in this chart. I mean, you could focus on the full moon, or you could focus on the full moon square Uranus. That's a big deal. Add Vesta in. There's even more to talk about. And that's not even looking at the mutable Mars, Jupiter, square Saturn, square Venus. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a lot. So I think that's also what the conclusion we came to when we recorded this the first time was this
Mm.
was a lot. It's just
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, and to speak on hurricanes, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and experienced hurricanes every summer, right? And as a kid, I loved hurricanes because the smell of the salt water coming off the marsh and the it was like electricity hanging suspended in the air from all the water, and the animals retreated and got quiet. It felt supernatural. Having that barometric pressure change. It's like we would go outside and we would just be like excited. And we knew that it would be loud and windy and trees could fall, and like we had to board up the windows and maybe have to use like the radio that we'd have to crank to be able to listen to music, or have like hurricane lanterns or have to like eat food that wasn't warm. I mean, it was like you had to kind of compromise and do things that maybe you wouldn't have done, but that kind of added to the excitement of it all. But walking outside before the hurricane hit, that applying aspect, it was like, man, things are changing. And I don't know what's going to be on the other side. I don't know if I'm going to be injured or if my home is going to be leveled or if we're just going to have like sideways rain. I don't know what's good, but I'm excited because something out of my control is happening. And I'm just going to just make the best of it. And maybe we'll have to, put tents up in the living room and pretend that we're just camping, but it's kind of exciting. So when you said hurricane for this moment, I was like, that barometric pressure, that astrological barometric pressure may change. And we're not in control of these things, but we can control
No,
how we respond to them. So
that's right. Yeah, and it's just all the air and
mm,
there's not really the water very present, but I just feel like wind is whipping around during this
mm,
time. And you're right, because I graduated high school in New Orleans. I lived on the coast of North Carolina, and it's like it reminds me of Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump when he's like, "Is that all you got?"
yeah.
Because it's like exciting. It's you and nature, and when you come to this world, that is what there is.
Mm-hmm.
You and nature, and
Yeah.
that's it. And I think that I makes people feel alive in
Mm-hmm.
some way. I mean, think about how we have to go to work and get on the computer, and we're not digging the ground anymore for our survival. We're not,
Mm,
there's not many of us that are. There definitely are in the world, and I shouldn't speak on that. This is very America centric, but as it goes here, anyway, most people I know don't have to fight for survival in that we have to know the moons and know when to plant the seeds and know what
mm-hmm.
grows here. And it's just, we're a little disconnected from nature as a society. And so it feels like that is part of the excitement. It's something bigger than you
Mm-hmm.
and something bigger than you that you can either fight against or maybe fall behind or whatever the thing is. It's just something bigger than you, and that can be
Yeah.
exciting to go through. um it was exciting even that weekend when Mars conjoined Uranus. And it wasn't like, there was some scary stuff going on, but the electricity in the air was just so
Mm-hmm.
palpable. And there was this weird, and I mean, I wasn't excited about what happened, but like this just weird hair standing up on your arm excitement.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Something
Yeah.
is changing, something's weird. There may be, this feeling around that time as well. Could be stressful. It could be something that you're like, maybe I should look at that and, maybe I'll board up my windows, but I'm still gonna, get a 24 pack of Keystone Light and see
But
what
also, like,
happens.
shared collective experiences, even through trauma, are shared. And if we look at, I look at Jupiter Gemini as being kind of a fracturing, even more so than the fracturing that we all participate in. We always talk about unity and how we're disconnected and divided, but we all participate in it. So we're not doing a good job of making that happen the other way. But having shared collective experiences, even through trauma or even through big, tragic events. I'm not saying that this will be tragic. I'm just saying when we all share something together, like on my birthday this year, I went up to New York City, and that my only disappointment was that I wasn't in North Carolina to see the aurora borealis, because when I was in New York it was overcast, and so we couldn't see the sky changing. But when the aurora borealis happened, for most of America, you were like, everybody kind of like shared that. I witnessed it through other people's posts, but it was like this like unity of like shared experience. And like right now, the lightning bugs or the fireflies and the Great Smokies are doing this beautiful synchronous dance, and people are traveling all over to watch it happen. It's out of your control. It's from nature, and it's collectively experienced, and it's this temporary unifier. You have people on either end extremes of the political spectrum witnessing and laughing together about this one shared experience. And I feel like full moons have that capacity, especially a full moon in Aquarius, which is like less about the royal Leo leader solar figure. It's more about the shared perimeters that we all exist in some form.
Mhm.
So, for that, I'm not saying it will be tragic at all. I actually don't know that it'll be tragic. I feel like it'll be electric, and there might be potential for it to go any way because it's all that mutable stuff. But I'm kind of looking forward to, like, what are we all going to share, and are we going to take that chance to kind of hold on to that unification of shared experience a little bit longer than the moon. Then the moon will be in Aquarius because it'll go into Pisces, later that day, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it is worth noting that the full moon in Capricorn was the second full moon in Capricorn in July was
Mm-hmm.
trine Uranus, and this one
Mm,
is square to it. So, and we saw shocking things happen during a trine to Uranus. I mean,
mm-hmm.
with one of the candidates stepping down, and that was that day, and it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, there is probably going to be something, whether
Mm.
it's, perceived as good or perceived as bad. Again, yeah, free will, we don't know. Free will and fate and astrologers just kind of
How does it work?
figure that out, so
Well, and we've mentioned this a few times before, but Patrick Watson talks about aspects to Uranus as feeling malefic in the moment, but benefic in the long run. And so that square, that square from Uranus to both luminaries, um, I feel like something might happen because of that, but uh, one, it won't last long. And Uranus is usually quick and out of the blue anyway. But maybe in the moment it might seem like shocking and disruptive, but in the long run, maybe that's just kind of the shaking up that was needed.
yeah.
History will tell, time will tell, astrology will tell. But
Yeah, I mean, no one's really even talking about 2 weeks ago anymore. It's
mm-hmm.
like it's life happening very fast. I
Yeah,
completely agree. So, oh, that one is interesting. Let's go back to the calendar.
we can't say that word.
Oh,
Remember,
that's right. Wah, wah, wah,
it's
wah.
hard not to, just because I said it last night. A friend of mine gave me a tarot reading, and she pulled up a card, and I was like, interesting. I was like, ah. But it
Man,
was, I
maybe.
was like, it got my attention of like, why did that card come up? And it was great. It was a great card to have. It was like directly related to my dream, but that was the word that like bubbled out. I
Yeah.
was like, I need to get more interested in a thesaurus so I can find a different word.
We live in very interesting times, don't we?
Yeah.
I know. I haven't said absolutely, I don't think once yet. So yay. I'm also trying to we're doing it. All right. So the 22nd, the sun moves into Virgo. Speaking of paying attention to what you're saying. And Venus squares Mars that day. So
Hmm.
I do have the fact that there does seem to be a weighing. That's why I have a little um scale there because and a light bulb because it's like mentally Virgo weighing something out.
Mm-hmm.
Mars and Gemini, Venus and Virgo. And keep in mind, all three of these things are answering to Mercury and Leo, which is slowing down to go direct. Not direct yet, but slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, with the sun moving into Virgo, to me, that just is like, okay, we know that it's going to come in and do the same things Venus has been doing. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to oppose Saturn. It's going to square Mars and Jupiter, and that's the first thing it does is square Mars before. No, it opposes Saturn first, then it squares Mars. So it's making it through
Oh
its
yeah.
um, malefic moments. I guess this
Mm-hmm.
week Venus has some malefic moments, and to speak to that, I mean Venus being gifts and love, and especially in Virgo, servanthood, square Mars and Gemini, which is like, but what about this? Why would you help that person who just tripped? You don't agree with their politics or something.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that, why would you do that? Mars being like, and Venus being like,
Yeah.
because I'm supposed to,
Right. It's
that's
the right thing
why.
to do. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And this might be needed during this time, Venus squaring Mars, because Venus will escape it. Venus is moving
Mm-hmm.
faster because Mars is going to go retrograde December 6th, I think. Um,
And Cancer. Is
in
it Cancer?
Cancer. Leo, it goes
Or is it
retrograde in
in Leo
Leo
and goes back? Yes, right.
back to Cancer.
Yeah,
So,
this day is like when you're speaking just now, I'm remembered like, okay, well, there's, the speaking from the heart, speaking truth, maybe kind of returning to something that hadn't been said before with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Venus there is kind of squaring, being challenged by that Mars. It's like, why did you help that person? You don't like their bumper stickers on their car or
yeah.
whatever. And there's this idea of how you live matters way more than just the things that you say that you believe. And so what you believe and how you say it in Leo, like have that come to form into tangible earthy form with that expression of Venus and an earth sign and say, I might not intellectually agree in the mind, but human to human, heart to heart, but for the grace of God, go I'm going to help this person up and just
Mm.
putting it into action and then keep moving forward, because Venus is direct.
Yeah, and then the next day, it just goes right along with the story arc that we're presenting because Mercury will make an opportunistic sextile to Mars, and Mercury is
Mm-hmm.
ruling Mars. And Mercy, it almost looks like Mercy because I misspelled it,
Yep.
but I left it on purpose. Because it does feel like a merciful, like Mercury is like,
Chance.
hey, yeah, hey,
Yeah.
have you seen this, or have you thought about or felt really in Leo? Um, I don't. I guess Leo is not necessarily a feeling sign, but I kind of relate it to Mercury and
Hmm.
Leo feels. That's what it
Yeah.
seems like. Considering Mars is in Gemini, so there is a little bit of that um, realization. That's a good word
Yeah.
for
To
that day.
realize. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Realize. What is it? Realize. Realize. There's that realize. Like
I don't know you.
double. It's like realize. Everyone realize real lies. Like
Oh. Yeah.
that's what it is. Realize real lies that day.
realize that day.
So
I
after
like
that,
I like I like Mercy Sextile Mars. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna take that U out and just in my head
yeah,
just write that on my calendar.
Mercy Mars. That's what it feels like. Yeah. And then, I mean, we get one more really nice trine on the 27th with Venus trine Uranus. So
Hmm.
this is kind of when it gets a little easier, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Mercury and Mars, the 23rd. And then we go into that weekend. Venus is approaching the trine to Uranus. And I love that. From Virgo, because it's like all this craziness. That's why I have the little cleaning thing.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm so good with my words, you guys. The little cleaning thing, the sponge
The
and the
sponge and the
bottle
spray. Yeah.
with Venus and Uranus, because it's organizational in nature. It is
Hmm.
getting it together where Uranus shakes it up. So there is a sense that Venus may come and put some things together that weren't together because it's in Virgo.
Yeah, and I mean, just like the phrase "cleanliness is next to godliness." There's the magical art of tidying up. It's like cleaning the temple floor. There's something about just refreshing the energy and making it nice. Like Venus likes to make things nice, and especially after the chaos of Uranus that Uranus brings. Uranus's job isn't to make order; it's just to kind of disrupt, 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 so that you can see the gems that are hidden and the things that kind of were vulnerable to be broken. And Venus there, I love the little cleaning supplies there, just to be like, make your if you have, Virgo as the fourth house, for instance, it's like making that temple very clean. And how do you honor Venus with that? Because Uranus is going to go retrograde, I think September 1st or 2nd. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like right at, so it is very slow. This is a nice little chance for those two to kind of trine and be supportive. Earth signs love to support earth signs. It's like, I know trines are of the nature of Jupiter. They're supportive. All the elements, will trine each other. But earth signs really love supportive structure. They
Yeah.
like to see the express supportive structure. So whenever there are those earth placements that are in trine together, it's like, come on, team, we can do this, we can do this, we can hold on. There's so much that is designed to kind of disrupt it. So let's just like enjoy the moment, take the win. That was one thing that we said on the last video, the Voldemort video. It's like, take the win, like this is a take the win kind of a day. And whatever house Taurus and Virgo are for you, I just feel like it's a chance to kind of pretty up, fortify, make nice before Uranus starts to move
Yeah.
backwards.
And Uranus is in Venus's home sign. So this is like
Hmm.
Venus looking at its own house and being like, I
Yeah,
know I'm over here visiting Mercury's place, but we need to
I
clean
see you.
something up. Yeah. Yeah. I learned some new cleaning techniques from Mercury. So here we go.
And then she's going to run into Neptune the next day.
Exactly. Which, I think
And
is so
Neptune's
funny.
like, Neptune's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah. It's like when you go stop at a gas station on a trip and clean your windshield, and then immediately run into like cicadas or
Yeah.
something and just mess your window up again.
Hmm.
That's kind of the nature of it. But it is really dreamy. I
Mm.
don't mind Venus Neptune, especially with Venus exalting in Pisces. I know
Hmm.
it's not in its favorite place, but it's almost a connection to it with
Yeah.
it being opposite Neptune.
Yeah, it's that full moon moment almost away, that the opposition of being able to see, like, oh, that's what my house looks like. I really like my house. I couldn't have that
Oh,
perspective until I was like the furthest away from it that I could possibly get, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, maybe I don't mind the dirty windows. It's
Hmm.
okay. I miss it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the dreaminess of it. That will be a day of sleepiness probably. Maybe, I don't know. I need to look at where the moon is. But Mercury also turns direct in Leo. So I mean, that is busier. When Mercury gets going again,
Can we see where the moon is? Is it
yes, we
in
should.
Taurus
It's a
or
good point.
Gemini?
It's making me stop my share to share it. Okay, so we got Venus. We're gonna say opposite Neptune.
Oh, Cancer. Oh, that's even better.
Oh yeah, man, I like that. I like
Interesting.
that.
No, that's really lovely.
It is. It really is, because I mean, the ability to rest and the ability to I don't know, just tune in. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's tuning in during this moment. Uh, I'm just looking at the rest of it because Mercury turns direct. I mean, what? This is at 3:24 p.m. that Venus exactly opposes Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mercury goes direct at 4:13 p.m., like an hour later.
Wow,
So
nice.
that is really cool. And in Leo, you know, I just realized Mercury is going direct pretty well sextile Jupiter and Mars. That's pretty
Oh
nice.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's really gonna get going then. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
I
I
feel
think that
like,
it Kazimis again in early Libra. So
yeah,
it'll be chasing the sun. I mean, the sun has like 15 degrees ahead of itself. So it's out of combustion at that even across sign boundary, but it'll catch up with the sun like in a month, which is really cool.
that is really cool. I mean, and even the 28th, we're close to a new moon. So this does it seems like August really starts like winding down from
Mm-hmm.
all of that craziness
Yep.
around this time. And what else? Oh, Venus moves into Libra the next day and trines Pluto,
Mm-hmm.
which I actually, oh gosh, it moves fast. It's moving really fast. Venus
She
trine
can't
Pluto.
wait to get home.
Yeah, I know, right? 9:30 a.m. She can't. I don't blame her, man.
Yeah.
After
You're
being
like,
in Virgo, making her work and everything.
you're like, I had to like face off with Saturn and Neptune and square Mars and square Jupiter.
And
Like,
now
it is
it's
good to be home.
it feels like Venus is being crowned here,
Mm.
especially by maybe by Pluto. Pluto's like, hey,
Yeah.
welcome home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happens at 9:31 a.m. August 29th, which is a Thursday. Um, and this means too, and just a little quick preview of September, Venus will trine Jupiter and Mars, and that will
Mm-hmm.
be a nice change from the squares to, well, no, Mars will be out, but just Jupiter then.
Yeah, Mars will be challenging her from that square from
That's right.
Cancer, but having Jupiter and Pluto kind of ferry her through with some trines.
Yeah.
And I think that Venus is in Libra most of the month, maybe the first 3 weeks. She moves pretty quickly before she goes into Scorpio. Um,
I think you're right. Almost most of the month.
okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, something to note as we end August, because this is really the last major, I think, major transit
Mm-hmm.
happening is the
Yeah.
20th is Venus trine Pluto. But Mars might want to pay attention to Mars at Anaretic on September 3rd. And I know September 1st, Uranus goes retrograde just in time for Venus to be in its home sign, by the way. Its other
Mm-hmm.
home
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
Like, I'm at my vacation home.
Yeah.
You need to clean up your mess over there in Taurus. I'm not dealing with it. But the new moon is September 3rd, it looks like. So we're very quickly going into this new. I like new moons at the beginning of a month. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. It's pretty
It
nice.
sets it up. It was like that for August too. Now that we're kind of on the right track again for the lunations. But
That's
yeah, Mars
right.
at the anaretic degree on Mars Day does feel a little expressive in Gemini.
It
um,
does.
Mercury's direct at least, and not exactly in a sextile, but moving into the sextile. So
Yeah, and square to Uranus. It's square. I mean, it's wide orb at this point, but something to note.
oh, and Pluto. So can we back up? When does
Yeah.
Pluto retrograde back to Capricorn?
Oh, right. Oh my gosh. Are you
Is that the
kidding?
first?
Look at this. I have to go by hour. Yep. It is 7:31 p.m.
Wow.
And it may be not 31, but it's right after the 7 o'clock hour,
Mm-hmm.
Central. So yeah, Pluto back in Capricorn. Pay attention because that's where the full moon in Capricorn was
Mm-hmm.
this last full moon that we had on the 21st,
First. Yeah.
21st of July. So I don't want to, if you're watching this in mid-August, the 21st of July was a full moon in Capricorn. And Pluto, it was kind of a harbinger for Pluto moving back to that
Mm-hmm.
29th degree, I think. And it makes sense. Capricorn is government and structure. And we had a candidate, currently president, step down from the race
Yeah.
on that full moon. So it's something to note anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the first day of the last time in our lifetime that Pluto will be in Capricorn. So it's, we're only going to have what, like 2-ish months of this before it moves direct and goes forward into Aquarius for the next 20 years. So, um, it's funny. Like I think about transits and I'm like, oh man, I cannot wait for that to happen. And then when it's up to the last one, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I'm ready to let go. Like what is it about this last moment, this last opportunity, this last digging of riches? Because I like Pluto for that. That is going into your Capricorn area of life, and it's just this final Cinderella slipper, last little hunting in the basement for what last little treasures before you sell the house. Like, what is this final stage? It's the magnets off the fridge, last move before you leave. And so there's this like, this is it, for 280 plus years, we will not have Pluto and Capricorn. And so we
That's
get
right.
this, we every time Pluto moves, we kind of get this symbolic ending of some sort of large chunk of time because it's the outermost planet that we pay attention to in modern astrology
Yeah.
of what the transits are. And so it is that liminal edge, and the transits happen so much longer. And then when it changes, it's still in Saturn sign. So we talked about this like March or April. It's like the journey of Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn sign will also continue in Saturn's other sign of Aquarius, but it will be manifested differently. The themes might be very similar, and they're going to kind of really weave in. Like for me, Capricorn and Aquarius are third and fourth houses. So how is that weaving of the Plutonian riches and the Plutonian revolution and the Plutonian power and shape shifting? How is that going to weave between those two houses? Is like the last piece of the puzzle, the last key
Yeah.
that we have, and we're not going to experience again once 2025 comes. It's going to be Pluto and Aquarius for 20 years. So
Yeah. And I mean, how close are we to this?
that sextile.
Yeah, between these outer planets.
Yeah.
And I wonder how palpable. I know that people give very, very small orbs for outer planets,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't help but feel like this is just the first little inklings of this minor grand trine, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I was just looking, Pallas is here.
Hmm.
So there's just some really neat stuff going on during this day.
Yeah, because Uranus is going to go into Gemini. Neptune into Aries is really kind of getting my attention a lot, and then Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Like the shift out of Earth's and water signs, out of the Yin receptive signs into expressive outward Yang masculine air and fire is big. Like the vibe you bring to the function next year is quite different than what you brought this year.
So true.
That is
Yes.
one prediction I will say absolutely is going to be the case. So, this is like this last, like, bring the best that you can from these earth and water so that you can express it in a
Yeah.
more like directed and funneled way once these move into Aquarius, Aries, and Gemini.
Yeah,
Is then it's
exactly.
game on for sure.
Yeah. September 1st going to be pretty cool. Pretty cool. But that's for next month.
Yeah.
So we'll stop there. We're not going to torture ourselves anymore because we tortured ourselves. This is the fifth hour of truly this podcast. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we'll just recap by saying be in your heart, let your heart lead, find that heart center, and however you can, be it through creativity, play, children, and any sort of way that you can, that's going to be the most important thing this month, don't you think?
Yep. Yep. And also like turn that into yourself too. Like be kind to yourself. I think the best way to serve others is to take care of yourself first. So, if you have those intrusive thoughts that are just kind of, especially I think of Cancer risings a lot, having Mars in the 12th. It can be so damaging,
Mhm.
or I mean, honestly, Aries risings with Saturn there. It's like it can just like having those hard places and is it the mosquito? Like the things you can't really like find, but you know that they're there. Just be kind. However you would be kind to someone else, like give yourself that much grace and compassion, and we'll all be good to just like be wrapped up in that rose quartz light bubble that we can manifest around ourselves if we choose to, because we know it's going to be challenged over and over in August. And that's like, may the challenge be how well can you bubble wrap your soul and your spirit and your heart, and those are all around you. And yeah, I think we'll get through this and we'll have really good stories to tell. I feel like I was writing about this for a publication later, and I feel like Venus has so many really beautiful stories to tell this fall. And uh, I feel like the beginning of that Venusian story is starting to be told when she goes into Virgo. And so, yeah, hold your heart very, very tenderly and lightly, and share it through music and children and play and art and creativity, and share it out with others and be expressive with that. I'm saying all of this out loud to just so I can listen to the recording myself later on in the month, but I know I'm going to need a pep talk. So here's your pep talk for your heart. Um, yeah,
I love it. I'm gonna need one too. So thank you for saying it.
of course. That was for you especially.
Yeah, you said Cancer rising stuff like, yep, that's me. I got Mars in my 12th. Oh,
It's
but we'll
not
make it.
easy, not easy. I have Mars in my eighth. I actually kind of like Mars in my eighth. I won't lie. It's
Yeah, it kind of
been
feels like, you know, I know this is Mars joy in the eighth. It should be. Mars is like,
yeah.
woo, I can do this. But yeah, my 12th in Gemini too, I feel like a crazy person. So if you're out
Yeah.
there and you feel like a crazy person, it's probably due to Mars, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, the sun, maybe the moon. Who knows? It could be any
Hmm.
of them. So
Yeah. Neptune. Whenever I feel crazy, I always look to Mercury, honestly. I'm kind of
yeah,
like, what are you doing? What kind of trickster play are you doing? And knowing that Mercury moves quickly, it's kind of like, I'm just going to wait for you to just move on out of here. So,
I have to say, as a addendum, I am fascinated by Mercury retrograde with the sun there in
hmm.
Leo. I'm pretty fascinated by it this year. I don't know why, maybe because there's so much in Mercury's home signs, and Mercury's like, oh no, I'm vacationing, and
Yeah.
like whatever. And it kind of feels a lot less mental and a lot more um I don't know, like inner fire. It just feels
Hmm.
less, just like, you can mentalize everything all the time
Mm-hmm.
with Mercury. But this is like the sun's there and it's going to kazemi with the sun. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, we're going to just burn.
Huh. Are you called to do anything because of that? I mean, sometimes Mercury has that like that song that it sings and like gets your attention and you're drawn towards a certain direction in the woods. Like where are you being drawn towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, expression in many ways because I have many ways, and most people do, So I've thought, what I'm gonna do. I need to go back to doing my little rising sign videos on my
Mm-hmm.
YouTube because a lot of people enjoy those, and I need to write,
Yeah.
music, and yeah. So I think that's what I'm getting from Mercury in Leo. I mean, it's my second house too, so it's who knows? Maybe it's getting my finances in order too.
Yeah.
But it feels creative. It feels very creative.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah. It's
you
like the
getting
idea
anything?
of me doing like finally doing my taxes with Mercury retrograde feels very boring in comparison to that. If I can get it done in those
Mm,
first 4 degrees of it being retrograde in Virgo, then I can just have fun and play.
that's a good point.
When it goes into Leo, get it done with the Virgo. Don't file it until after it goes direct,
Yeah,
but have that be the deadline to finish the taxes so that I can just like enjoy the dancing to Tom Waits in my kitchen while it's retrograde in Leo.
I like it. I like it. Well, with that, I guess we can sign off.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
Mandi Ray of Ecstatic Astrology. You can find my stuff at ecstaticastrology.com or on any of the socials. I'm usually Ecstatic Astrology.
I'm Christa of Practical Astros. You can find me everywhere in the internet as Practical Astros. And thanks for listening to our much more vibe friendly second edition. It's like almost like we just built it up. It was very. I'll just say this: at the end of the third hour, I like my shoulders were slumping, and I was like, Mandi, what do you tell your clients? Like, how do you help them? Because I feel like I need it now. So it really was like, I feel like we just like held hands through the fire and we're like, wow, that really sucked. Let's just try it let's try to walk over the fire this time instead of
Yeah.
on the hot coals through it. So thank you so much for doing round two. And this was much more, it felt way more appropriate to be able to share with other people. So
Yes, I agree. And yeah, please leave a comment if you have any, because we'd like to see and hear from you. And like, share, and subscribe
yep, it
to
helps.
whoever's channel, both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend ask me, he was like, I'll subscribe when my paycheck comes in. And I was like, it's free. You can subscribe for free. It does not cost you any money. And
Yeah.
the reason why it's helpful for people that have YouTube channels is that the algorithm is like a hungry, insatiable beast. And when you have a channel that is growing, that has people that engage with it, it seems so minimal. And the way that I described it is like, this is a Goliath world, and this is my slingshot that I'm slinging my energy into the zeitgeist of it. So subscribing to channels, liking videos, and commenting, it seems so mundane and so simple, but it's actually really helpful. And it just helps if you like the content. Don't do it if you think this is shit, but you probably haven't gotten to this point if you thought it was shit. It's like engaging with it actually is like really beneficial, and
Yeah.
it's a way to kind of support and be allies to this kind of work, whether it's musicians or writers or astrologers or whoever you listen to. It's a really simple act that you can do, and we appreciate it. It's not just regurgitating what we hear other people say. It actually does make a difference. So
I
that's
agree.
my truth. That's my truth that I'm speaking out.
Mine too. I like it. I agree. And maybe we can put a subscribe button like right here.
Oh yeah. I'll put it on Mercury.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll catch
All
you
right.
later. Please, yeah, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.